My sister called me at exactly 6:12 a.m. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Dad died last night," she whispered. "The funeral is tomorrow. Don't come. You're not welcome anymore." Then she hung up. I stood frozen in my kitchen. 5 seconds later, a phone began ringing. Not outside, not in my pocket. On the kitchen table. It was Dad's phone. The same phone my family had just told me belonged to a dead man. And when I answered, everything I believed about my family shattered. Part 1. My name is Daniel Carter, and until that morning I thought I knew exactly who my family was. I was the oldest of 3 children. My younger sister Emma had always been our mother's favorite. My younger brother Ryan could do no wrong. I was simply the responsible one, the son who moved away, the son who called every Sunday, the son who somehow became the outsider. Dad and I were close despite the distance. Every Wednesday evening, we talked for nearly an hour. He never missed a call. Never. 3 days before everything happened, he sounded completely normal. He laughed. He complained about his tomato garden. He joked that Mom was trying to feed him healthy food just so he'd live long enough to keep fixing everything around the house. Nothing sounded wrong. Nothing. So when Emma called saying Dad had died overnight, my heart broke. But something didn't make sense. She refused to tell me how he died. She refused to let me speak to Mom. She even said, "Dad didn't want you involved." That sentence felt impossible. My father would never say that. I sat at the kitchen table trying to process everything. That's when I noticed something lying beside my fruit bowl. A black leather phone case. At first, I thought it was mine. Then the screen lit up. Incoming call. Home. My hands started shaking because I recognized the wallpaper immediately. A picture of Dad holding my daughter on her first birthday. This wasn't my phone. It was his. I stared at it as it kept ringing. How could Dad's phone be in my kitchen? The last time I'd seen it was 6 months earlier during Thanksgiving. I answered without thinking. Silence. Then, very soft breathing. "Dad?" I whispered. The line disconnected. I looked at the phone again. No missed calls. No call history. Nothing. Almost as if the phone had erased the call by itself. A chill ran through my body. Then I remembered something strange. 2 weeks earlier, a package had arrived at my house with no return address. Inside was only one thing. Dad's old phone charger. I thought he'd accidentally mailed it. Now, I wasn't so sure. I plugged the phone into the charger. The battery came alive. 3%. The screen unlocked automatically. No password. My father trusted me. The newest message wasn't from Mom. It wasn't from Emma. It wasn't from Ryan. It was a note titled, "If you're reading this, I'm probably in danger." I stopped breathing, but before I could open it, someone knocked on my front door. 3 slow knocks. Exactly the way Dad always did. I rushed outside. No one. Only a small cardboard box sitting on the porch. Inside was a single house key. Attached to it was a handwritten note. "Don't trust your family." My hands were trembling as I stared at the small brass key. It looked old, worn smooth by years of use. The note attached to it contained only 4 words. "Don't trust your family." No signature, no explanation. But I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Dad's. For nearly a minute, I couldn't move. If Dad was truly dead, who had written this? And if he wasn't, then why had my own family told me he was? I grabbed my car keys, Dad's phone, and the mysterious key. There was only one place I could think of. Our old family lake cabin. The cabin hadn't been used in almost 10 years. At least. That's what everyone always said. The 2-hour drive felt endless. I called Mom 12 times. No answer. Emma blocked my number. Ryan sent only one text. Respect Dad's wishes. Stay away. That sentence made my stomach twist. Those weren't Dad's words. They were Ryan's. When I finally reached the cabin, weeds had swallowed the front path. The windows were dusty. The porch sagged under its own weight. It looked abandoned. But something caught my eye. Fresh tire tracks. Someone had been here recently. I tried the front door, locked. Slowly, I slid the mysterious key into the old lock. Click. It fit perfectly. The door opened with a long, tired creak. The air inside smelled of old wood and dust. Nothing looked unusual, until I noticed a single coffee mug sitting on the kitchen table. Steam was no longer rising from it. But it wasn't cold. Someone had left only a short time earlier. "Dad," I called softly. Only silence answered. Then, buzz. Dad's phone vibrated in my pocket. A new notification appeared. No sender, only a message. Basement. I froze. The cabin didn't have a basement. Or at least, that's what I had believed my entire life. I searched every room until I noticed an old bookshelf that seemed strangely out of place. When I pushed it, it moved. Behind it was a narrow wooden staircase leading underground. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it. Step by step, I descended into darkness. At the bottom was a small room, a desk, a lamp, a filing cabinet, and dozens of boxes filled with documents. On the desk lay a sealed envelope. Across the front, written in Dad's unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "For Daniel, and only Daniel." I tore it open. Inside was a letter. "Son, if you're reading this, then everything happened exactly as I feared. The family believes I'm dead. Because I wanted them to." I stopped reading. My eyes filled with tears. Dad was alive. He had planned this. With shaking hands, I continued. "Someone in our family has been stealing from me for years. Not money. My identity. Loans. Property transfers. Insurance policies. Every time I uncovered one lie, another appeared. I couldn't discover who was responsible because everyone kept protecting each other. So I made them believe I was gone." I could barely breathe. The next page contained copies of legal documents. My father's signature. Forged. Again. And again. And again. One document nearly made me collapse. A transfer of ownership for Dad's house. Signed only 3 weeks earlier. The new owner. Ryan. But Dad had never mentioned selling anything. Not once. Then another paper. A life insurance policy worth $2 million. Beneficiary. Emma. Date activated just 6 days ago. Suddenly, every piece of the puzzle began fitting together. They hadn't been grieving. They had been preparing. Preparing for money. Preparing for inheritance. Preparing for a funeral. Before anyone had even confirmed Dad's death. At the bottom of the envelope was one final note. "There's one person you can still trust. He's waiting upstairs." The words sent a chill through my body. Slowly, I folded the letter, turned toward the staircase, and heard footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Someone was walking across the cabin floor above me. Then a familiar voice echoed through the hidden room. A calm voice I hadn't expected to hear again. "Daniel, you finally found the truth." I looked toward the staircase, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Dad," the word escaped my lips before I even realized I was speaking. Slowly, a figure stepped down the hidden staircase. Older, thinner. A week of gray stubble covered his face. But those familiar blue eyes hadn't changed. He was alive. I ran toward him, and for the first time since I was a child, I hugged my father so tightly that neither of us could speak. For nearly a minute, the only sound in that underground room was our quiet sobbing. "I'm sorry," Dad whispered. "I never wanted to drag you into this." I pulled back, still unable to believe what I was seeing. "They told me you died." "I know," he replied, "because I made sure they believed it." He took a deep breath. "I hired a private investigator months ago. We discovered that Ryan and Emma had been forging my signature for years. They secretly transferred money, took loans in my name, and planned to inherit everything before I could expose them." "And Mom?" I asked. Dad lowered his eyes. "She knew, but she convinced herself they would stop. That hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself." Dad opened one final metal box. Inside were original property deeds, bank records, security camera footage, voice recordings, and every document proving his innocence. "I've already sent copies to my attorney," he said calmly. "And this morning, the police." Before I could answer, we heard tires screech outside the cabin. Dad looked at me. "They're here." Seconds later, the front door slammed open. Ryan's angry voice echoed through the house. "Dad, we know you're here." Emma followed behind him, panic written across her face. "You ruined everything," she screamed. They found the hidden staircase and rushed underground. The moment Ryan saw Dad standing beside me, all the color drained from his face. "You're alive." Dad looked directly into his son's eyes. "I gave both of you every chance to tell the truth." Ryan tried to speak. Nothing came out. Then flashing blue and red lights filled the cabin windows. Police officers entered from every direction. Within minutes, Ryan and Emma were placed in handcuffs. Neither resisted, because they knew. The evidence was overwhelming. As officers escorted them away, Mom quietly walked into the basement. She wasn't crying. She simply looked exhausted. She stopped in front of Dad. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have protected you instead of protecting their lies." Dad closed his eyes for a long moment. "I forgive you," he said softly. "But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences." Mom nodded. She understood. Several months later, the court returned every stolen asset to Dad. The fake documents were canceled. The insurance fraud charges added years to Ryan and Emma's sentences. Dad sold the old cabin. "The place holds too many painful memories," he told me. Instead, we bought a small house near my family. For the first time in years, my children had their grandfather close enough to visit every weekend. Every Saturday morning, they helped him plant vegetables in the backyard. Every Sunday evening, we ate dinner together. No secrets, no lies, just family. One afternoon, while watching my daughter laugh beside Grandpa in the garden, I asked him one question that had haunted me since that terrible morning. "Why did you leave your phone in my kitchen?" Dad smiled. "Because I knew if anyone would follow the truth instead of believing the story, it would be you." Sometimes people think family is defined by blood, but I learned something very different. Real family isn't made of people who share your name. It's made of the people who choose truth over greed, love over money, and each other over everything else. And every time Dad's phone rings now, it reminds me of the morning my family told me he was dead, and the day the truth finally came home.